The show is Dynamic Change on KPCA-LP in Petaluma, a free-range radio and TV station. And the show Dynamic Change is every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And what I'd love to share with people is all different kinds that we can have ways we can approach wellness, how we can have more happiness in our lives and modalities that can be used and techniques. And so I have a special guest today, Samantha, and she does some amazing work with all kinds of ways to approach the body and the different layers of the body. And so that's what we will be discussing today. And I will allow Samantha to go ahead and introduce herself and what she does. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, for having me on here. It's such a pleasure. So I am an integrative health practitioner and somatic embodiment coach. And for, gosh, probably over 10 years, I've had the privilege of working with just different individuals and leaders, really just guiding them through kind of the often unseen challenges that hold them back in life or in business. And many times that's of burnout or self-sacrifice or, even just nervous system dysregulation. And my mission really is just to help really high empowering, like empowering achievers that really just want to move beyond those limiting patterns that keep them small and align them more with the business and life with their passions, and transform that constant effort into those meaningful impactful moments that they can have in life, the way they want to bring things to the world and really truly just sustain their success and their health. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. What I would imagine, I know for myself and what I see a lot with people is knowing how to find balance with what our nervous system can handle. Like
Hmm.
when we're trying to work or do so much, I think the American society, and I'm totally, working on this particular pattern myself, but finding a way to feel regulated and present within what we're able to handle, what we're able to do, how are we really feeling, rather than being kind of on an automatic pilot, or have the most important thing being, what am I accomplishing?
Yeah.
And I found that to be really amazing to look at because I was a single mom for a very long time, and I just realized my priority was to really get things done and accomplish. And
Mhm.
then, assessing the nervous system is I think a big issue for people. And so I'm really glad there's people like like you and so many of us that are really tuning into what does that look like? How does that play out? How do you
Yeah.
find helping people kind of tune into what pattern they've been running? How do you like to start with people?
Yeah, so many times what I see is when a person is just in complete either overwhelm or they feel like they're spinning their wheels, that moment where it's like they just are trying to reach this goal, whether it's professional or personally, and they just feel like that they've done all of the moves, all of the knowledge, all of the training, everything, and they just can't quite reach it. Many times what I see is this patterning that happens kind of in the background, the subconscious mind, those things that run the show that we don't even really quite realize. So it's coming into that place and saying, okay, what's happening here? And really just taking a look at perhaps even things that have happened in their past. So it's more about, yes, there's that nervous system regulation. It comes from being able to pull into what's happened in our past that's caused us to be in this pattern. What is the situation that maybe caused us to want to be small or held back or not bring our boldness forward? And so it's many times it's finding those things that happen in our childhood, I have a lot of like pre-perinatal training that I've done in somatic
Mm.
developmental traumas. Um, and I use traumas as it's a very wide word, but it's definitely can be anything from, you were told to be really quiet in church or something and you got a spanking and that caused you to think, oh, I can't be my bold self. That's that kind of trauma all the way to maybe a loss of a parent. So how do we go back into that time, figure out what's happening that is causing a person to not reach their highest goals, that maybe they're self-sabotaging things that just come from an old story that they're holding on to, and then bringing that forward through this patterning that I use, the pillars that I use through my system to really um, unwind that old story, help regulate the nervous system, help teach it something new, and how to what's the right thing? How to really just bring forward their truest self from that place and heal that place. Yeah.
I agree. I I find it really interesting because I feel that the kind of work I do is the same of going
Mhm.
back to those places. And I think it's really profound to be able to go back that far and realize, prenatal is amazing to me, you
Hmm.
know. So going back into the self and being able to recognize, and I think so much of it has to do with feeling like we can trust and feeling like we can be supported
Hmm.
and have it's like a safe container is what I have found. What I
Yeah.
have found is if we imprinted, that's kind of how I think about it, right? So if we imprinted subconsciously, which to me then translates into like your cellular content of your tissue, right? Of the emotional context and everything and reference point. If you feel like you got that safe container from, from the beginning and
Hmm.
you felt really loved and nurtured and supported, I think those patterns, it's amazing how deep within the self these patterns, if, whatever it is that came up from just the beginning that you experience, how it can set up a pattern of maybe feeling like you can't trust being heard, cannot, or maybe you didn't have the support, or you didn't feel like there was someone that really had your back, kind of per se, at such a young age, where you felt that safe container. And how does that result in the psyche if we don't feel like we have that container outside of us? Are we able to receive? Are we able to express? Are people really going to hear us? Or, like, I think it really develops a barrier to even trusting that a successful interaction could happen when there is a really intense trauma or neglect or something like that. And so I find that stuff to be really profound because you may not know. You could just be operating within your life and not understanding what is that block that is so subconscious, so automatic, where you're not really consciously thinking about it, but it becomes this adaptive, I think, kind of coping mechanism. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think that so many times I like to call them the blueprints and the imprints. The blueprint is kind of what we're innately born to be in our lives. It's how we came into the world. Before all of the imprints happened, before all of the chaos or the societal conditioning or things like that happened. The imprints are more those little things that happened along the way of our lives, even from birth, conception to birth to, you know, young childhood to adulthood, those things that happened that caused us to say, oh, if this, then this, right?
Mhm.
If I, for instance, I'll bring it back to like grocery store or church. If I'm loud and I, you know, cause a burst of energy to come out or something and I get in trouble, then that means I can't be, it's not safe to be seen, or it's not safe to be
Mhm.
heard. Little things like that that can cause those little imprints to happen. And then that then is where we start to live our lives from that patterning. And it's just, we start to pull ourselves into that reality of, I can never be seen because it's just too, it's not welcomed. And so
Mhm.
what I find is that many people that are trying to reach these higher goals for themselves, whether it's in business or personally, that when they're trying to reach those higher goals, they kind of sink back a little bit. Like it's almost unsafe to be in that place. Even though they really desire it,
Mhm.
they sink back and they don't know why. They can't figure out, why can't I just reach that next goal? Why can't I do this thing? Why can't I hit that level in my business, or in even in my company? Like it's those little things that hold them back, those little imprints and patterning that's happened. So yeah, I definitely relate with that, and that sense of, that's what I often see in people.
Yeah, I find it really amazing how brilliant we are, even as an infant,
Yeah.
to regulate our nervous system or regulate our intuitive, our psyche experience, the psychology, the memory of the tissue. Like I think our bodies and how everything connects is it's amazing how
Mhm.
profoundly we can compensate and
Yeah.
change and develop a, a coping mechanism of sabotaging something to keep ourselves safe. It's pretty mind-blowing to me, and I think it's just I've always believed we were extremely brilliant like that. And but the complexity of it, I think in general, this is just now coming to light. I think with so many people working on understanding trauma and understanding how to work with the nervous system, I don't think these understandings were broached a lot in the past. And so I
Yeah.
think it's becoming a new awareness. And what are you finding? Do you find that this is becoming more of a common knowledge?
Yeah, I feel that more and more people are taking kind of health back into their hands. That
Mm,
it's not just, well, so for me, it's looking at kind of the whole person. And I think that that's more what society is starting to understand. Before it's like, oh, here's this one issue that's happening, we need to either, throw medicine at it, or throw therapy at it, or throw these things to really just kind of, let's figure it out, put a band-aid on it, whatever it is, however, people have experienced that. And I think that more and more what I see is that more of this integrative approach to things, which is, I love seeing that, because it's not just like, for me, it's, when I think about like wholeness or wellness in general, it's, for me, it's not that, wellness goes far beyond just that absence of like the illness piece, or this piece that's happening where they have a certain sickness. I believe it's like, for me, it's looking at that whole person, right? The whole health, which in general is kind of that that dynamic of that genuine alignment
mhm,
that really encompasses every part of us. So when I see people, or I see more people going more to that true wellness, it excites me in general. Like it's more like that true wellness can really only begin when we look at the whole person. Like when we're looking at the physical, the emotional, the personal well-being, all the spiritual well-being. And I find that more practitioners are starting to take that approach. And it's really kind of bridging that gap of, you know, where can we take a person to their whole health? and more people I think are taking that stance for themselves too. Yeah.
I really agree, and I think that's so profound. I was very fortunate at a young age to be exposed to Eastern medicine. And for me, it's like spoke to me at a very deep level because it was that holistic approach of the
Yeah.
whole being. And I found when I worked in the psychology field and when I was studying it, I loved it. I found it very interesting and everything, but I always felt that element was missing.
Hmm.
And that's why I decided I did get my degree in psychology, but I didn't want to be a normal therapist just because when I did meditation and I found that I could access such deep layers of myself.
Yeah.
And I could also work with my psyche that way and work with the layers. And so for me, I really wanted to find that avenue of all the layers, working with the somatic content, and I think we're moving in that direction, like you said, and I think that that is really powerful, and I think it is empowering for people to understand that they can seek help that is holistic and integrative as opposed to just going the path that we have been doing, which in Western medicine, I think it has a great place and can be very helpful and be very diagnostic and everything. But it's a very different approach. And I think the more we reach outside of our box to see how much how much aligned we can feel. And I think that's a wonderful way to put it, and find what alignment means to us.
Hmm.
Because when I worked with people, I would often, because I think it really involved working with the energetic part of ourselves. And some people don't really understand how to connect with that. And so
Yeah.
I think that has been kind of a bridge that hasn't been fully come across within society, is how can they understand that the energetics are such a huge part, because the scientists, they will tell you we have energy in our body. We just do,
Oh yeah,
but it's
we
tied
do. Yeah.
it's tied into everything. It's tied into
Mhm.
how we think, or it's tied into how we feel. It's tied into how our body runs. Like, it's part of how everything flows. And so when you're wanting to heal something emotionally, it's like you have to work with that point. And so when
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
approach people, I would often say, well, what do you believe in? Are you spiritual? Are you not? Are you religious? Do you just meditate? Which is, like finding a way to kind of connect the dots in a way where I could talk about that, where they felt really comfortable and seen. And because I think that's really what is such a profound piece. And whatever that means to them, whether people have done it through religion or meditating, or however they access, or even just universal energy, however they want to look at that, it's so profound how much deeper you could heal.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's I'm really grateful that there's so many practitioners that I have been meeting lately, that everyone is integrated so much more in this direction.
Hmm.
I'm excited for how much healing in society, how much larger healing can be with looking at all the different parts of the self. And I think people have kind of really are open to looking at these things because what they have done in the past has only gone so far,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't know why. And I think they've been like, why am I still getting physically sick? Why can't I, feel peaceful?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, no, and I'm so glad you bring that up because
Hmm.
that is the largest part of what I see in a lot of my clients too, is they have different physical ailments that it's like, why is my shoulder hurting or the having issues with my back so much for so many years and nobody can explain it. Like I
Hmm.
can't have surgery, I can't nothing. It's because there's stuff that's held there. Until we actually release the emotions that are trapped in that
Hmm.
place, it's going to stay that way. And I can actually even bring up um, a story of a client of mine is when we actually did a few sessions. She's telling me about it was actually her shoulder that had been in pain for many years and they could never figure out why. So they just threw medication, like pain medication, and it wasn't until we actually did a little deep dive with her. I say little deep, it was a deep dive that we did and really discovered some things that had happened in her past that she had just thought she let go of and healed from, but there was still something in there, still trapped in that the emotion around it. So when we were able to release that, her pain went away.
Hmm.
And, eventually, as things do, they kind of come back until you can kind of create this new reality of letting go of this story, feeling like that you don't have to hold on to that emotion anymore. It doesn't run your life. That's when it finally released for her. And it's been over a year and she's not had that pain. And so,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
things can be held in the body. It's like when a person, I'll mention this, and it's like when a person says, if you think about it, when a person gets anxious or angry or something's their stress, where in their body are they tight?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, they're thinking through this stuff in their mind and they're staying stuck in that moment there's anger, or stress, or whatever it is, overwhelm. But where do they notice it in their body? That is the
Hmm.
first thing I tell people. What are you noticing in your body? Because your body knows. If it's held in your stomach or your throat, let's listen to that. Let's tune in. Let's see what's going on there. And it makes a world of difference to release things like that. So yeah.
It's so powerful. I used to work in physical therapy for many, many years. And
Mm,
because I had this background in psychology, and people usually just felt comfortable talking with me, I would end up just counseling everyone that came in for the
mhm.
shoulder injury, for the back injury, because the emotional connection was so huge, and people would be so upset when they had an injury. They'd be angry, they would feel out of control, they were upset with feeling vulnerable, they were upset with all of a sudden being forced to feel their feelings because they couldn't override it with how they had coped, you know, with through their physicality.
Yeah.
And I would just talk to them and talk to them and allow them to get in touch with some of the feelings. And I think it's so profound, the connection between our physical experience. And I really, I really do believe the more I work on education, I mean, I've studied a lot of somatics, but even the more and more and more I go into it,
Yeah.
it is, I think it's the key to really, because even so, what I have found, unresolved trauma, even, okay, let's say unresolved trauma that you can't remember,
Hmm.
right? So if something happened and it was traumatic, and in order for your psyche to handle it, it got suppressed. So you
Yeah.
have no memory. So then there is this thing that gets triggered, right? And so all of a sudden you're triggered, and you're angry, you're upset, you're like full on meltdown. You don't know why, right?
Mm.
And so it's really a fascinating way to say, well, where do you feel this in your body?
Yeah.
And work on regulating the nervous system. Because what
Yeah.
my current pondery that I've been considering is, I don't think necessarily people have to remember a trauma that overloaded them in the first place. That they felt like, I couldn't handle looking at that, and that's okay. And maybe just working through the nervous system somatically, and so it can resolve that trauma loop can get
Yeah.
them to the other side where we don't have to be in fear of something, because I think things can be locked away so deep. And I think the fear, all they can handle recognizing is that there's something scary there.
Yeah.
And I really feel like, how can we have enough compassion for ourselves to be like, you know what, we don't even need to say exactly what it is sometimes.
Hmm.
And because there's a lot of trauma in the world. And I think that in the past, we haven't known how to, in a lot of cases, I'm not saying that there's hasn't been therapists that know how to resolve it or whatever, but I'm just saying that I think that a lot of the modalities we've utilized for the most part in our society was not completing the trauma loop. And they
Hmm.
were medicating, right? Or they were talking about it, but there wasn't a completion because they didn't know how. There's nothing wrong with it, just didn't know how.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the conclusion I'm kind of coming to in addressing how trauma flows within our society. Maybe the fastest, most effective way is, rather than pushing against the fear of, it's like the boogeyman. I know something is there. It's
Hmm.
too much for me to feel and look at. But having these resources of ways that could be addressed and resolved and just released. I mean, what do you think of that?
Oh yeah. What comes up for me when I was listening to you is it's the fear of the unknown. Like we
Right.
know something's there, but
Mm-hmm.
we're fearful of being able to take a look at it or move past it or move through it. And that that often so much is what I think holds people back, is that fear of the unknown. Not just that something's scary, but something like that's there, but it's something that we don't know what's going to happen on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be scary in itself too. But when you're able to find that strength within yourself of, you know what, I'm gonna step out of the dark. I'm gonna step into this thing that's unknown. Like that just keeps coming up for me right now, is this unknown place. Is that, how do you know it's not going to be something that is going to give you all the success in the world, to give you that
Mm-hmm.
freedom you're looking for, that peace you're looking for, that empowerment, or whatever it is that you're looking for? You're not willing to step towards that just because it's unknown. So how can we help support you? How can that be supported, and find that strength within yourself? And it all ties back into that nervous system healing.
Mm-hmm.
We say, where is it at in the body? But that's truly, it's the nervous system that's there. It's the stories are tied in the nervous system. And when we can unwind that, yeah, they can move through that scary point. They can move into the unknown with that strength within themselves. That's what comes up for me anyway, when you say all that. Yeah.
Yes, I really agree. I do a lot of inner child work to give the safe container for that part of the self that
Yeah.
is just too lit up from maybe what could have, the trauma or whatever it is. And but the interesting thing is, like, the idea of the boogeyman and the unknown is, it feels like people don't know how much better it could feel. It's
Hmm.
almost like the unknown has more power than the belief system of, they could all of a sudden have all this flow and happiness in their lives. Like, it is so daunting,
Hmm.
right? And so I really feel that working with the nervous system is very profound, and creating a safe container, because a lot of what I do with people is I work on all the layers, but I like to develop a safe container for them behaviorally and psychologically and emotionally, so they feel like they can start feeling safe enough to heal those things. And I just think there's so many layers that understanding how it could be. would be a really profound, like what I mean, it's so rare you meet someone and you're like, oh my gosh, they had such, how did they live that life? And their life experience was so easy, right? Maybe there was so little things that were traumatic. And so I like to watch people quite a bit, and I would look at them, I'd be like, okay, there's certain blocks they never imprinted on. And I find it fascinating. And I look at them, I say, oh, so they never had that particular block. So I can see what it looks like for someone to not have those blocks, because I think we're so unfamiliar with what is 100% flow, what is 100% feeling actualized within yourself, feeling accessible to your inner strength and flow. Like, what does that even look like? And I find it really interesting because I think that within our lives, so much has been in the way and kind of held back, that it's a really fascinating concept to think of. How is it to be in really strong alignment with all the layers of yourself and believing anything is possible?
Yeah.
I was always wired that way my whole life. Even as a child, I believed anything was possible. So when I approached a topic, I was like, of course I could do that. If I wanted to do it, if it was something that I felt really passionate about, I felt, why not create that for myself?
Hmm.
And but when I look in society, I find that I don't always bump into people that have that kind of viewpoint. And I think that there's been a lot of limitation in the way. Um, and so I'd love to hear what you think about that. And again, I'll reintroduce what we're doing just in case you've tuned in late. This is, I'm Michelle Love, and I'm interviewing Samantha, that does all kinds of amazing work with the psyche and with somatic work. And also, you're listening to KPCA LP in Petaluma, but I also want to make sure we say, how can people get hold of you so they could work with you? What are your
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they could go to my website, which is Sacred Owl, like the bird, sacredowlsolutions.com. And they can contact me through there. I have my services that are up there. They can look at those. I have my events that are coming up.
Mhm.
I will be doing a few different events that might be perk of interest for you, even Michelle. I'd love to bringing you in on those, the Whole Health Reimagined Summit and things like that.
I would love it.
So yeah, yeah, so excited for that. But yeah, that would be the best way. Go to my website, hop on the contact me page, and just send me a message. I'd love to hear, even if it's just, hey, I heard you on the radio station, or want to have a question or an insight or whatever it is. I love to connect with people. So sacredowlsolutions.com. Yeah.
What kind of modalities? So if someone were to contact you, like what would they sign up for? Like what kind of
Mhm.
brackets within your work, and what do you call it, kind of, for your
Yeah,
services?
so they can just schedule what I call the Impact Accelerators call. It's a session where we kind of take a look at what's going on in their world, whether it's health related or emotional, physical related, whatever that may be. I do wellness consultations with my integrative health stuff that I do, as well as go into nervous system healing for those that are having, depending on what they're stuck in. So we take a look at what's going on, what's been working, what's not working, and then I just let them know, like, here's some things that I can do, here's some things that I might recommend for them, or if it's something I don't have in my wheelhouse, then I have a whole list of other practitioners that I can refer to. So yeah. And that brings me to as well, if somebody's really seeking just that whole health, tired of the fragmented systems that are out there, and just looking for something that's all under one roof, I do have the myhealth365.com they can connect with too. That'll be going live and launching here soon too. So, yeah.
I think that's wonderful. You really provide such an amazing platform for not only other practitioners, and your collaboration with people is very, it feels so like heartfelt and open.
Hmm.
And I think that nowadays I've just really enjoyed, because I've always been a pretty big hermit in a lot of ways, and I don't scroll and I don't do social media, and so there was a lot of things. I don't even do TV very much, but it was very interesting for me lately to meet so many other practitioners that were of the same mindset of where I came from within myself. And I was just thrilled. I was like, oh, here are these people, and they are looking at it, in these really strong ways that I feel like there is a movement of really helping people be integrated within themselves, feeling aligned, understanding how to approach a deep level of healing that hasn't been there, um, at least mainstream before. I was always fortunate to be able to find it because I worked for an acupuncturist when I was 18.
Mm.
And I grew up around a very holistic healing arts kind of environment. And then I went into psychology and I started working with the body so young, and all in all these different layers, that I felt very fortunate because I was exposed to, I felt very supportive, effective types of healthcare, really. And once I was exposed to it so young, it resonated with me so much. I always followed that path. But now I feel like it's really being embraced more on this mainstream level. And I think that's really quite profound for how much more wellness, how much better people can feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really important because people have been hitting a wall, I think, ever since COVID, like starting COVID. They were like,
Mhm.
wait, I do not feel good. What is going on? And they did, and they're just like desperate,
Yeah.
I would say, to
Yeah.
find that healing. And what I think is good about that is, in desperation, we're willing to go outside a box that maybe was not working. And I think
Absolutely.
that's so profound. We need to go outside of old patterns that have not been helping enough, so
Hmm.
people can deeply feel better. And I think when they deeply feel better, they can become their full potential for themselves, for their work, for their loved ones, for who they come in contact with. It heals society, in my opinion. It just ripples and ripples and ripples.
Yeah.
So I just really feel we are on the edge of a really big shift. And I'm really excited because I think that the younger generations coming up, I think every generation has new, fresh ideas and new, fresh energy. And I just think that the more we clear the stuff that has been in the way for people, which affects society,
Hmm.
that these kids can walk into a healthier container within society where the energy is, there's more flow, there's more openness. So we can have, I think it's interesting. What I want to say is more heart and compassion feeling, just more open. I think a lot
Hmm.
of times there has been constriction, and with the patterns. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I definitely think that, as you said, as we move more into our present and our future here, it's almost creating like a new blueprint for people, a new footprint in the world of, when we can look at ourselves, when we can look at our whole selves and we can start to really heal on a deeper level, not just as an individual, but as a society, as a community, it really does make a difference for those that are coming after us, like for our generations, like that come after us. And really, how can we, um, or not really how can we, but it's more like just watching that shift, that dynamic happen. Um, is fascinating, really. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see that it's happening in a bigger movement than I had assumed. And
Hmm.
so I always, for me, in for my own path, that was always my goal, was to heal, to continuously heal throughout my life in the most dramatic, transformative ways I was able to access all the time, just because I wanted to be able to be the best practitioner I could, the best mother I could, to be as present as I could with everyone that I came in contact with. And just meeting all these amazing practitioners like you that are really embracing this high level of healing. I think giving people this access is profound, because I think people really need relief. I
Yeah.
think the old patterns are not going to continue as much. I really do think society is learning, and we have more access to educating ourselves so much more easily, through the internet, through the YouTube, through all these sources, where I think we're going to continuously be make like choosing better choices,
Yeah.
better expression, better self care. And as all of the old baggage heals, I don't think the kids come in with that baggage. I think every generation is fresh, and they don't come in with what we've had to heal from. And it keeps getting better and better and better. And with the amount of access to this level of understanding and healing, I think it's going to be a huge amount of flow that the upcoming generations are going to be able to step into. And I think that's super powerful. And I like to say that just because I just I believe in holding hope all the time. So no matter what we feel we're dealing with chaos within ourselves, within the world, whatever, I always want to focus on where we want to be. I think it's achievable.
Yeah.
So that's how I when I meet people like you and I listen um, to what you do, that's what I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It's just being able to look at that. What comes back for me is just looking at the whole health of not just the person, the society, that all of that, but just truly looking at everything in one perspective. Like what I mean by that is when we can really look at all of the different ways that we can heal ourselves, that are that come back to that emotional, physical, mental, spiritual self. Like that's when things can really start to shift, dynamics can change, trajectories can change, like all of those things, is really when you look at the whole being, the whole self, the whole community. Yeah. That just is what pops back in for me, is just looking at that. And that's the kind of stuff that really excites me, is that when we can really look at that whole being, that whole self in all those different aspects, and how can we come to that true wellness, then that shifts the world. Because if we, the more that we can reach out, the more that you reach out and do your work and I do my work, the more that we do create that ripple. I love that you brought that in earlier, that ripple effect, until we make a big wave in this world. And I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love that. Yeah, that's kind of my love, is helping helping that impact, helping other practitioners bring that impact into the world too, and show their what they do and what they offer to the world. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think it's just really exciting, and I think it all connects. I think everything's connected, within society, our community, and it anytime we heal ourselves as much as possible, I think it reaches and keeps going and keeps going. So even, people you don't know feel that, because the thing is, when you heal yourself as much as possible, everyone you come in contact with has to adjust, right? So if you had like codependency or a negative pattern with them, when you heal yourself, you're healing those patterns of relating.
Mm.
And it allows you to, not only you to be empowered and be in touch with your inner strength, it allows others to be in touch with their inner strength, because we're not doing this unhealthy dynamic anymore. And then everyone they talk to, right? So that's why I just think it's so powerful, even if we feel like we're kind of floundering through it all, but to constantly, at least this is what I always say, when I talk about parenting, I think just owning what's going on all the time, even if you feel like, oh man, I could have done that so much better. But like, own it and just keep working on it and tell your child, that's not the way to do it. What I just did, don't do that. I was just frustrated about something else. I'm going to go take some space and regulate myself, modeling constantly, so our kids understand that we're just kind of cleaning up what we're still learning, and that's okay. But every time we do that, we are helping them understand that they can have that flow for their way, and not allowing our stuff to kind of bleed over as much as possible. Just keep working on that. But I think it's really profound, and it affects everything, and that it helps a high level of healing. So before we wrap up, I want to share one of the shows we have here on the radio station. It's called Nonviolence Radio, and it's alternating Mondays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's hosted by Stephanie Van Hook and Michael Nagler, and it's a nonviolence radio. It explores the power of nonviolence worldwide through interviews and news. And I love reading about this show, because I think if we focus on really positive things, focus on healing, focus on where we want it to be in the end, is so powerful. That feeling and idea of having peace within ourselves, within our environment, around the people we love, around people holistically, and just our whole environment with the earth, the animals, the people, like just having that balance is achievable, but holding that vision, I think, is helpful.
Yeah.
And so, Samantha, tell us again how we can reach you and contact you and check out
Yeah.
your really fascinating website. I think it's so beautiful. I have to say that, by the way. So,
Thank you. So you can go to sacredowlsolutions.com, owl like the bird, sacredowlsolutions.com. You can go and see the events that I have coming up, the different summits, health summits. You can connect with me through the contact page. You can come in for a wellness consultation or somatic consultation, and then also through the myhealth365.com site for kind of just pulling back in your full health for yourself, whether that's nutrition or functional health, integrative health in that way. So yeah.
wow, I think it's wonderful. And tell me again, real quick, you have a couple of like events. Can you,
Yeah,
real
so
quick?
yeah, May 30th and 31st, I'm doing 2 days. It's called Whole Health Reimagined. It's for the individual that's ready to take back their health. So I'll have a lot of different presenters there. Michelle, hopefully you'll be there.
I
Looking
will.
forward to that. Yep,
We'll talk later.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And then I also have a 3-day event coming up in July. These are all on my website, and that's where I take people through the 3 different pillars of rising to their fullest potential, fullest health, fullest person of who they are, and making that impact in the world. So, and then just, different master classes that are happening too. That I
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for all you do, and thank you for everyone being patient for my little faux pas with the technology. And I'm so glad we were able to get it online. And again, I upload all these shows to my YouTube station, dynamicchange.wellness.com. And this show is every Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And I'm really grateful for Samantha for being here today and sharing these amazing things she's bringing to the world. And everyone, I look forward to all the wonderful changes in the world. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again next week at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much, Samantha. And everyone have a good day. Goodbye now.
Bye.